Now it's time for chapters 6 and 7 of Malcolm, the Boy Who Can Talk to Dogs by Karen Bayley. I told Freddie my plan. That's brilliant, but how are we going to talk to Curtis with your Uncle George there? She had a point. Uncle George could talk for England, Wales and Scotland. It'd be impossible for me to talk to Curtis with him there. We could ask him if we can take Curtis for a walk. That would prove to be difficult too. There was only Uncle George and Curtis. They were inseparable, like Ant and Dec. What if we told him it was a school project, Freddie suggested. Oh yeah, like, Uncle George, I'm doing a project at school about trying to find my dad, so I wondered whether I could have a little chat with your dog. I didn't mean it to come out as sharp as it did, and I'd needlessly upset Freddie. I'm only trying to help. A tear formed in her eye. I'm sorry, it's just... I found myself on the verge of tears too. I know, you don't have to explain yourself to me. She linked her arm in mine. Come on, we'll think of something, we always do. I love Freddie. Not in the yucky kissy kind of way, but she truly is the best friend you could ever wish for. As we walked round to Uncle George's, we had worked on the school project idea and decided if we made it sound really complicated, Uncle George would get confused and give in. I left it up to Freddie to do the explaining. She has a wicked imagination. She always gets top marks in story writing. So, Uncle George, he's not our uncle, but everyone calls him that, we're doing this school project where we have to take something that belongs to someone else that means a lot to them, then we return it and write about how they felt it being taken away from them. Then we write about how we feel about how they feel, and then they tell us how we should feel, and then we compare our feelings and then write about how we all feel. What on earth is she going on about? Uncle George looked totally confused. I had no idea what she was on about either, but it seemed to be working. Can we take Curtis for a walk, please? Yes, just get her out of here. She's driving me mad. Good old Freddie. Her plan had worked. I'd drawn up a checklist of things I needed. 1, dog, namely Curtis. Check. 2, dog lead. Check. 3, poo bags. Lots and lots and lots. Check and double check. And rubber gloves. Curtis had no idea what was happening. He looked a bit nervous. Maybe he thought it was payback time for Poogate. Oh yes, I still hadn't forgotten. Where are we going? Freddie and I are going to take you for a walk. Why? We think you may be able to help us. We headed to the park. I'd mentally made a list of things I wanted to ask him, but I was really nervous. What if he couldn't help? I still wasn't sure how much dogs can actually do. What if he didn't want to help? One thing I was learning about dogs was to expect the unexpected. They were a constant surprise. The park was quiet when we got there. I found a bench and sat down. I'll leave you to have a chat, said Freddie. How weird did that sound? I'm just going to go over here to see if I can yo-yo on the climbing frame. Of course she could. Freddie could do anything. In fact, the last time she was on a climbing frame, she'd hung upside down playing Candy Crush Saga on her phone. Okay, what's all this about? I just wonder whether you could help me find my dad. Why? Where's he gone? I explained what had happened at Hampton Court, how Dad had gone in the maze and not come out. Curtis looked confused. Well, I think it was confused. I was still learning to read dogs' expressions. Why didn't he sniff his way out? Although there were some things I found we had in common with dogs, there was still a massive gap. I was intrigued about this sniffing thing, though. I got distracted. How do you do all that sniffing and stuff? We have an incredible sense of smell. Yeah, well, everyone knows that dogs are good at smelling. This seemed to make Curtis really angry. Good at smelling? Good at smelling? That's like saying One Direction have a few fans. Or Shakespeare wrote the occasional play. Or Henry VIII quite liked wedding cake. Oh yeah, he had 6 wives. That one's funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a point. Okay, calm down. You've made it. Curtis still wasn't happy. So I let him tell me all about dogs and how they smell. Dreadful. Sorry, old joke. I will digress here, dear reader, as what he told me was really, really interesting. I won't bore you with all the details, however. Here are some of the amazing things he told me. 1. A dog's sense of smell is 40 times stronger than ours. That's hard to imagine. So Curtis explained that if someone sprayed a bit of perfume in a large room, humans would be able to smell it. Imagine if that same bit of perfume was sprayed in a city. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to smell it, but dogs can. He assured me that to dogs, we really, really smell. Some would say stink. Everything we do leaves some sort of smell, and dogs can pick it up. When humans smell, 2. When humans smell, we just have one little passageway that goes into our lungs and we pick up smells that way. Dogs have 2 passageways. One goes to their lungs, the other goes into another bit of their brain, a kind of smelling factory. 3. Am I boring you yet? Tough. Just one more thing. This bit I found the most interesting. When dogs keep weeing up trees and lampposts, they don't need to go. They're actually passing information on to other dogs. So when another dog comes along and sniffs it, what they're actually doing is catching up on local news and gossip. Brilliant. We have email. They have P-mail. I did wonder how Curtis knew all this stuff. Apparently he really likes the Discovery Channel on TV. Okay, you've explained the smelling stuff, but we can't do that. So where do you think he's gone? Well, that's just it. We don't know. Is he microchipped? What? He explained that a vet had put a chip in him, and that if he gets lost, they can scan him and all his owner's details come up on a computer. Now, I think that sounds a brilliant idea. However, I can't imagine people going along with that. That'd be like asking someone to wear a collar with their name and telephone number on it. Again, a brilliant idea, but not very practical. I suppose we could have written his name in the back of his coat, like a reception class. So what do you want me to do? That was a good question. What did I want him to do? But Curtis was one step ahead of me. I suppose I could send some P-mails and tweet her, see what comes back. Oh, dogs already called them P-mails. And also they had Twitter. Or should I say tweeter? How can you P in 140 characters or less? But that wasn't really important. What was important was that Curtis was going to help. I'm sure with his help from the dog world, we would definitely find Dad. Oh, just one more thing. If I help you, can you do me a favour, please? Of course, ask away. Could you ask your uncle to change his socks once in a while? His feet really stink. I really felt for Curtis. Everyone knows that Uncle George's feet smell, but knowing what I do now and how strong a dog's sense of smell is, I'm surprised Curtis could breathe at all. I looked over to the climbing frame where Freddie was swinging with one arm and yo-yoing with the other. I had no idea how she did it. She'd been hanging there for ages. She must have muscles of steel. I waved her over and told her everything Curtis had told me, especially the bit about P-mails and tweeter. That's brilliant, really funny. I didn't tell her that dogs already called them that. I liked making Freddie laugh. We headed back to Uncle George's, feeling so much more positive. I just had to find a way to get him to change his socks. I made a mental note to buy him loads for Christmas. Chapter 7. When we got back to Uncle George's, everything was in chaos. There were 2 police cars outside and loads of policemen with police dogs wandering around the garden. Mum came hurrying down the path. Where have you been? I've called and called you. I took my phone out of my pocket and noticed I had loads of missed calls. Sorry, I had it on silent. What's happened? Why are all the police here? Your Uncle George has been burgled. What? How come? What have they taken? I was beyond surprised for 2 reasons. Firstly, Uncle George had been in the house when it happened. And secondly, he didn't have anything of value to steal, unless you count his books on steam trains and collection of Star Wars figures. Don't ask. Curtis was sniffing a police dog who was filling him in on what happened. After the police dog had finished, Curtis bolted inside and launched himself into Uncle George's arms. Uncle George had been crying. I'd never seen him cry before. Curtis gently licked the salty tears from his face. He really loves Uncle George. Oh, Curtis, where were you when I needed you? Curtis let out a whimper. I think it was his way of saying sorry. He glared at me. It's your fault. You should never have taken me for that walk. I didn't know what to say. Yes, it was my fault. Mum came in, sat me down and explained what had happened. Every afternoon, Uncle George has his daily nap, same time, every day. He dozes off in his chair, with Curtis lying next to him, half dozing, half keeping guard. Once Uncle George was asleep, it was impossible to wake him. But this afternoon, I had taken Curtis out for a walk. Uncle George had settled down for his nap, and there was no one to keep watch. Whilst he was asleep, the burglars had broken in. They managed to steal what they wanted without Uncle George even waking up. I still didn't understand. What has Uncle George got that they wanted so badly? I looked round the scruffy living room, finding it hard to imagine any treasure Uncle George must be hiding to have caused all this mess. All the drawers on the sideboard had been pulled out and the contents had spilt onto the floor. Your uncle had something very valuable that can never be replaced. Your granddad had several medals that he left to Uncle George. But loads of people have medals. Surely they can't be that valuable. Not medals like these, Mum explained. They're very special medals. We're not really sure how your granddad got them. However, what we do know is that they are very rare and valuable. Your granddad was a very important man. The police think that the people who came to steal them are part of an organised gang that have been watching this house for some time. I looked at Freddie. She, like me, was speechless. I could tell by the look on her face that she felt as guilty as me. I went into the sitting room where Uncle George was staring into space. Curtis looked distraught. I was getting better at reading dogs' expressions. I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Curtis calmed down. No, it's my fault. I should never have left him. I know he has smelly feet, but I love him. Did you know about these medals? Yes, he used to show them to me. But what's the point of having a reward if you can't eat it? Uncle George noticed that I was in the sitting room, and he looked exhausted. Oh, Malcolm, I'm glad you're here. He didn't seem to blame me for taking Curtis. Don't you worry, lad. It's not your fault. The police have been watching the house for some time. They would have found a way to get their hands on them at some point, whether Curtis had been here or not. Well, it's not your fault. He doesn't blame you. That's not the point. I shouldn't have left him. Man's best friend and all that. Look, I know I promised to help you find your dad, but I need to get these medals back. I knew that I wouldn't be able to find Dad without Curtis's help. Me and Freddie will help you find the medals. And then, will you help me? How can she help? All she can do is hang upside down from climbing frames. That's a bit unfair. She can do loads of things. I suppose we need all the help we can get. Curtis, Freddie and I would make a great team. First we'd find the medals, and then we'd start looking for Dad. Okay, we will be back with Chapter 8 very soon.